Motion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. The minutes for February 16th, 2023 are adopted. All right, so we have a few bills up first, a few bills up today. The first bill is actually one that we had a conversation about, House File 1487. I think, was that last week? I don't know. We're in a time warp. 1 week ago today, we had a great conversation on this. So it turns out we had been in communication with the team in health, and they, you know, because usually if a bill is a tax bill, we like it to end in taxes. So we understood that the health committee did not want to take a look at this bill. It turns out that they do. And so we have laid it over, but we're going to re-refer it out to the Health Policy and Finance Committee. And Representative Davids and I texted a little bit about this over the weekend. And I mean, to my thinking, you know, that's sort of a good place to have a more full conversation, I think, about the EMS issues, because it's sort of more in their arena. So that's our intention. I'll go to Representative Davids and then Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I would fully support getting it over to health. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Representative Swedzinski.
And Madam Chair, you had mentioned talking about some bills, you know, starting in taxes, ending in taxes, and sometimes it's okay for some bills just to end.
Thank you for your participation, Representative Swedzinski.
Madam Chair, I didn't say that.
Also noted, Representative Davids. Thank you. So I'm going to move that House File 1487 be re-referred to the Health, Finance, and Policy Committee. Representative Reyer is here. We had a great conversation. If you don't mind, we'll kind of just see if anybody in the committee wants to say anything, and if not, we'll take a vote and get you on your merry way. Any further discussion to the motion on 1487? I'm not seeing any. So all those in favor of 1487 being re-referred to the Health, Finance, and Policy Committee, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. And the motion carries, and 1487 is re-referred to Health, Finance, and Policy. Thank you for being here again with us, Representative Reyer.
Thank you,
Hopefully
Madam
we will
Chair and
not be
Committee.
hearing this bill again before our committee.
I would be happy to.
All right, great. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate that. Next up on the agenda is Representative Fischer here. I don't quite see him. Maybe he's not here. Okay. Is Representative Baker here? You're just going to get up there and pretend to be Baker? Well, man, so, okay, we got our authors really showed up here today. We'll hold us. We're just gonna. Representative Davids is gonna hum the Jeopardy theme song while we wait for some of these guys to. Karaoke. Yeah, I mean, a cappella karaoke would be in order, I think.
Not the guy we wanted to see. Dang.
He's not gonna do.
Oh, right.
We can start doing range stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna text Baker too. Yeah, I have it. They weren't used to, they weren't anticipating our lightning fast efficiency in tax. Yes, Representative Swedzinski.
I really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, good point. There's one, I know.
Yeah, we have one.
Hey! Welcome to committee, Representative Fischer. That's how we greet everyone when they walk into taxes.
Thank you, Chair Goldsman. I'm so touched to be so warmly welcome to your committee. Thank you.
All right, so before us is going to be House File 1810, and I'm going to move that House File 1810 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Welcome to committee. Representative Fischer, please explain your bill.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. Thank you, committee. My bill is a bill that does a couple of things. What it does is in the Human Services Finance Bill, there's dollars that are awarded for workforce development grants. And we're doing a couple of things with that, is making sure that the people who need the grants, these are lower income people, to make sure that they're able to do the work that they need. It's to make sure that people understand that the grants are not to be considered income or assets in determining eligibility. And then also because of that, there's going to be an income tax subtraction for the grants that are received. This is a DHS agency bill to make clarifications to an existing grant program that was passed in 2021. It was called the Home and Community-Based Workforce Development Grant. It was primarily to help grants to direct support professionals who provide supportive services to people with disabilities and older adults. And we're looking at focusing on the part of it that the development grant will be used to provide payments to direct support personnel. These payments are for workers with incomes of 300% of the federal poverty guideline or lower. And I will pause at that point, and I have a person here from the department who can also help answer any questions and provide a little additional information.
Excellent. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Christy Grom, and I'm with the Department of Human Services. Thanks so much for giving us a little bit of time to talk about this small but important bill. And thank you so much, Representative Fischer, for helping us out with it. So as Representative Fischer mentioned, the 2021 legislature authorized the Home and Community-Based Services, also called HCBS, Workforce Development Grant. And this was part of what was known in 2021 as the HCBS Enhanced FMAP, or Federal Medical Assistance Percentage, which essentially means our federal match that we get on our Medicaid expenditures in Minnesota. And it was related to funding and flexibilities that were created under the American Rescue Plan Act for states to be able to draw down revenues to support their HCBS programs, really enhancing them, growing them, creating innovation. So this is really important funding. We're from the HHS world, and so for those who might be maybe not as familiar with what HCBS means, home and community-based services are for people primarily who are living in their own homes, in their family homes, so children, for example, or adults who might be living in their family home, as well as community-based settings, so things like group homes. They could be provided in places of employment to help people be able to work in school settings. Sometimes you see PCAs even here at the legislature helping people advocate and share their feedback on bills that you're all working on. And so as part of the bill that was passed in 2021, 90% of the funding under these grants had to go directly to people who were direct support professionals. And we wanted to make sure that we were targeting that money in a way that was really meaningful. And so we initially in the bill had the funding targeted for people who were at 200% FPG, Federal Poverty Guideline, or below. We're expanding that a little bit under this bill. And there was just some unintended consequences given that the enhanced HCBS FMAP in 2021 was something that we had to do a little bit at the last minute because we got guidance very late from the federal government. They're not as on top of things as you all are. And so the legislature wanted to be able to make sure we could utilize this revenue. And so they put together a lot of these initiatives, and this was just an oversight that we didn't exclude income. We think it was an unintended consequence. We certainly don't want low-income people having to get, kicked off of their benefits. Some of these folks might be getting child care assistance. They could be getting medical assistance. So we just really want to make this correction, and we hope that you'll support this change. And I'm here to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grom. Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank Representative Fischer for bringing this bill forward. I think it's a good bill, and we should all support it.
Excellent. Is there any further discussion to the bill? All right, I'm not seeing any, and Mr. McQuillan and I are going to try not to have PTSD from talking about enhanced HCBS FMAP. We're going to leave that to the Human Services Committee. So with that, thank you so much for being in front of the committee. Do you have any closing comments for us, Representative Fischer?
It's a good bill. Please vote yes. Lay it
Excellent.
over.
All right, so I'm going to renew my motion that House File 1810 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. Representative Baker. Oh, Yeah. Oh, we're clapping for Baker too. We can start. Okay. Representative Baker, we're clapping for you because you were late and we were looking for you a little earlier. I mean, we're not going to hold it against you, but thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to move that House File 893 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Welcome to the committee. Representative Baker, please describe your bill.
And Madam Chair, thank you. I saw we were 3 on the agenda, so I apologize. I should never have assumed anything, and I was checking into my other committee.
Oh, we're just giving you grief. I
thank you, no.
understand. I understand we have a DE2.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to present the DE2 as well.
Great.
If I can move that.
Yeah, I'd like to move the DE2. Would you please go ahead and describe it, and we'll see if anybody has any.
I will. It really replaces the bill. Members, this has been a bill that I've been working on for a number of years here with just the manufacturing of food. It's what you consider in my world of running restaurants in the past. We assemble hamburgers and sandwiches and fabulous meals, and our restaurateurs want to purchase new equipment as much as they can. They want to keep their stuff as efficient as we can, to code when it breaks down. Every little bit we do to help them stay in business to keep their equipment up and fresh is really important. What this bill does is it treats restaurant manufacturers in the kitchen, specifically really to the kitchen areas, in keeping that spirit of what Minnesota has done years ago with the manufacturing lines. This allows them to purchase equipment tax-free. And again, this 6.875% of relief makes a big difference when we're doing this kind of expansions, these kind of upgrades. And nothing is more painful when you buy a piece of equipment, and 99 out of 100 times it's when the equipment goes out when you don't want it to go out, and it's the middle of the Friday night, and you have to just move quickly. So every little bit we can do, members, for this industry is helpful. And I do have a testifier today, Madam Chair, and would love to have them kind of take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Baker. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We got this? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, members. My name is Eric Forsberg. I'm the owner of Devil's Advocate. I have locations in downtown Minneapolis, as well as Stillwater, Joseph's Family Restaurant in Stillwater, Chloe, which is recently opened in downtown Minneapolis, as well as Broadway Pizza. So I've been operating for about the last 26 years as an owner and an operator, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify on House File 893. You know, as an ambitious restaurant operation, we have eyes on further growth, but before we can do that, we really have to clean up a bit of the mess we've been dealing with for the last 3 to 4 years. So we're always trying to maximize our customer experience while managing our costs. My team works really hard to create a great experience, particularly through our food and beverage program every day. And the equipment needed to do so typically requires a large capital expense. I think you all know that. Restaurant equipment is not free by any means. Paying Minnesota sales tax on the equipment adds up to a significant amount. And if it's eliminated, as proposed in this legislation, I would have the flexibility to redirect some of those funds to helping my business really recover and hopefully eventually grow. The impact of the pandemic has taken a significant toll on my business, as many of you know. Our downtown Minneapolis restaurants, for example, are still only operating at 40% of pre-pandemic rates. We are renegotiating with leases. We are trying very hard to get guests to come back down into downtown Minneapolis, and this, what seems like a small percentage makes a huge difference. A lot of our equipment was damaged during social unrest, as well as just being shut down. Believe it or not, restaurant equipment actually does not work well sitting by itself for long periods of time. So we've had to do a lot of replacement without any help from our insurance companies or otherwise in order to replace a lot of that equipment, and the sales tax piece is a significant portion of that. I've had to make difficult choices about what I can afford to replace and what I have to wait to purchase. It hinders our ability to deliver the great food experience that our guests have come to expect. With food and labor costs continuing to rise, providing the sales tax exemption on the purchase of restaurant equipment would help me retain much of the needed cash I need to reinvest in the business. Today I'm asking for your support on House File 893 to exempt restaurant equipment from state and local taxes. This would treat the restaurant and food service operators around the state with the same as other manufacturers that produce products and are resold to the guests and taxed again at the point of sale. Most importantly, it'll help a small hospitality industry, like mine, continue to serve my guests, my communities, and to continue to grow. And again, I'd like to thank Representative Baker for continuing to help us with this program. We have been pushing on this matter since before the pandemic, and it's nice to see it back in front of you all again. And I really hope that we can finally get this across the finish line and help my colleagues throughout the state. If there are any questions, I am happy to answer.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Mr. Forsberg. We had an earlier version of there was another testifier that was going to come who wasn't able to make it, and nice touch. She owns a restaurant in my district. But actually, I've never met her, but I'm pretty sure that I went to middle school and high school with her son. So I was like, saw her name. I was like, oh, that's going to be fun. But maybe another time, Ms. Wong will appear in front of us.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
That was just a
Representative Davis.
coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure. You know, he just pulled the name out of a hat. Is there any discussion or questions? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Representative Baker, and thank you to your testifier. I just have to say, on behalf of Maple Grove, we are bereft that the Broadway Pizza has closed. So, you know, that's a big loss in our district. You are sorely missed. Thank you.
Stay tuned.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only experience in the food industry is selling pizza at the state fair. So I wanted to ask, just because we are in tax committee, if maybe the author or the department could talk about how this tax credit would work or how it'd be implemented.
Representative Baker, should we go to our nonpartisan staff?
Madam Chair, if we do that, that would be actually a good idea. Again, I did want to preface this today. Last year, we worked on this with then Chair Marquardt, and we were working on the actual details because we were thinking the Department of Revenue was saying this is have a very good chance of passing. So we really wanted to dive into the details of the bill. And to the representative's questions, I think this is really good if we could pull up a question from nonpartisan or the Department of Revenue. We really try to dive into this deeply. So this is a good question. I think they could do a good job answering this for us.
Great. Thanks, Rep. Baker. Ms. Hagler.
Madam Chair and Representative Lee, so this isn't actually a tax credit. It is a sales tax exemption. So unlike the construction exemptions that we've heard previously in committee, the tax just wouldn't be paid up front and then refunded. This would just not be imposed at all. So they would not have to pay tax and then get a refund. There's just no tax being paid.
Thank you, Ms. Hagler. Representative Lee?
Thank you. And I don't know if the department wants to comment on it either.
I mean, is there more, do you have more of a question that wasn't covered by Ms. Hagler? If so.
My question is just, you know, how would this impact DOR and like staffing there, et cetera?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Ms. Bears, if you have anything to add, I guess, or maybe while she's coming up, or are you saying? Okay, maybe could I ask a question? So I know that like some businesses or a nonprofit, for example, will have a like some kind of credential, like so that establishes that they're tax exempt when they go to like a store. I mean, is this like something that I'm wondering? Does this apply to like stuff that you would buy in a retail location, or is it only things that you order? And do you have any information about how they sort of establish the tax exemption for only certain purchases for these kind of businesses? I don't know if that's to Ms. Bears or to Ms. Hagler.
Madam Chair and representatives, Ms. Bears might be able to talk more about the exemption certificates that are, you know, purchased, and maybe if the testifier has a little bit more experience about where they actually purchase their equipment from, it might be kind of like a warehouse type deal rather than an actual like storefront.
Okay, great. Ms. Bears, welcome to the committee.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joanna Bears. I'm the legislative director at the Department of Revenue. And there's a couple of things in normal circumstances with sales tax exemptions. Someone purchases the product or purchases the item, and then we do a refund of the sales tax paid. And that is consistent with our capital equipment exemptions and other sales tax exemptions. And then there is an ST11 form, I think, which is a sales tax form saying you're exempt from paying sales tax. A lot of nonprofits may use this sales tax exemption form when they go and purchase items specifically for their business. So that's another way to do it. But for most sales tax items that are exempt for outside of like the nonprofit world, we usually do, you pay up front and then you would claim the refund at the end.
Representative Lee.
That's good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks so much for coming up, Ms. Bears. We appreciate it. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if somebody can just share what the rationale might be for the exemption in the first place for capital equipment? Because it feels like we're sort of looking to expand that. And I'm just, in general, you sell something, then there's a sales tax. So I'm not sure who can, it may be Representative Baker, but it may be that there's somebody on staff, either House Research or DOR.
Representative Baker.
Yeah, Madam Chair, let me take a stab at that. I think, Representative Pinto, you asked a good question, and I literally think that this feels like manufacturing to me. We take a patty and an onion and we build things and we create a higher value, just like if we're making products on a manufacturing line. So this has been around a long time. It has been proposed. A lot of states do this already. It's nothing new nationally, but it's something where in this industry, we're trying to treat it like, again, creating a higher value of a product on the equipment, only on the equipment that is used to produce the product. So this doesn't count for other things, as the bill has stated. There's things that you cannot use it for. But I think what it does is it allows these kinds of exemptions for pieces of equipment that create greater value. So when we collect a tax again at the end product, we're not really kind of double taxing it, is how I would kind of read that.
And I'm maybe going to go to nonpartisan. If either of you have any, this might not be information that you have, but I think Representative Pinto was maybe trying to get at the original rationale for exempting manufacturing equipment from sales tax, since this is sort of like based on that concept. Ms. Hagler?
Madam Chair and members, so I wasn't here when the original statute was made, but I think part of the rationale is trying to avoid tax pyramiding so that the tax is imposed on the final product, as Representative Baker was alluding to, so that business-to-business transactions wouldn't be taxed. It's the transaction that goes from the production to the end user, if that makes sense.
Can you tell us what tax pyramiding is?
Oh, good point.
Please, Ms. Hagler.
Madam Chair and representatives,
no.
it's it occurs if a business pays a tax on an item and then the retailer also pays a tax on an item. There's a tax stacking or pyramiding.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hagler. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for that follow-up question, because I really was trying to get at that. I guess the thing that confuses me about if avoiding tax pyramiding is the rationale, though, is it feels like it's there are other examples of business-to-business sales that are where the tax still applies. Because I guess when I look at the current law, it feels like it's businesses where there's a pretty substantial barrier to entry and a substantial upfront cost. Is very capital intensive. I'm thinking about manufacturing and mining and things that sort of can't be moved from place to place. And so I'm just trying to get my head around and sort of where this stops, that if it includes kitchen equipment, what are there other industries, other things that get drawn in? And perhaps we just should, maybe because of that rationale, just to says any sales to businesses of any kind then get tax exempt. But I'm just trying to figure out where we would draw the line here. I guess maybe to Representative Baker.
And again, Madam Chair,
Baker.
thank you, Madam Chair. I think you're asking a really good question. We are stewards of the dollars here. We should collect them properly. But I think if the question should be asked is if we are charging tax on a piece of machinery or equipment that will enhance the value of products that the state of Minnesota will win larger at the end of it, the end user, to me that's where I can sort of feel like I can justify this request, like we have with other industries or other manufacturing type businesses. So we're creating an incentive to buy equipment to create higher values of product to raise really our revenue for, if a cost of a hamburger is $1.95 and we sell it for $10, we're getting the value and the sales tax on $10. And I think that is, to me, a great value for the state of Minnesota. So I think that with all that said, the more we encourage people to purchase and keep their equipment new and efficient and energy-wise type stuff, I think this is a good thing that we as the state of Minnesota can show our industry that we actually are business-friendly in this area.
Thank you. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess the thing I'm struggling with, as I say, is it feels like with any business, the idea is, of course, to be adding value that then is sold to a customer. And so I'm just trying to understand the distinction between this particular adding of value versus ones that would not receive, if this bill became law, that would not receive that exemption. And recognizing, of course, that unlike, so if I'm preparing food at home, I'm paying sales tax on the kitchen equipment at home. What I'm not doing is I'm not able to deduct, because of course these are businesses able to deduct the expenses already. So it's sort of, we've got sort of a double advantage then in that way, right? Or even, so I'm just trying to get my head around this about how we logically would draw the line here versus all business processes that are intended to enhance. I mean, I know you're provide hospitality, Representative Baker, and sort of thinking about the inputs that go into your businesses of hosting somebody at a hotel or, a catering business, various things that are not just restaurants. And they're all about enhancing the value provided to the customer. That's why people are paying for it. So just trying to figure out where we would draw the line. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Pinto. Yep, okay, you're on my list. Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe I'm glad you asked me next because it's kind of along this line because I remember this bill when us discussing it before and the great way they explained it. And I remember this because it was a restaurant in my district that happens to make pizza. And they talked about when a manufacturer that makes bread can use the sales tax exemption on the same mixer that the pizza place is using, which made sense to me. But it feels like this is expanding then to also more portable tools like the knives you're using or the dishware you're using versus having it directly tied to what a manufacturer could use. So I guess that kind of piggybacking onto what Representative Pinto was saying, that's where I'm getting a little bit confused. It made sense to me when they were talking about the pizza mixer because you are utilizing that same type of equipment when you're making, or dough mixer, when you're making bread, but the knives, like, how does that change with if you were looking at a florist who uses an sales tax exemption, if they could, to a big freezer that they're keeping their flowers in versus to the pinking shears that the artist is using to make the bouquet. So maybe making that distinction a little bit better so that I understand it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Joachim. Representative Baker.
And Madam Chair and Representative Joachim, I think of like retail store shelving. That I don't see would be the same here because we're not creating a higher product, a higher value of a product that we're going to put on the shelf and sell it. But I think though that in manufacturing and other places, equipment that is used as part of the creation of a product, again, whether it's here, utensils, holding cabinets, again, those are things that are equipment. To me, that's easier, but knives and those kind of things, cooking utensils, serving utensils, oven, grills, I think they're even specific about cooking utensils. The Department of Revenue, we kind of spent an hour and a half one day going through this list because they're asking the same questions you are. They don't want to get it too expansive. We aren't talking about the silverware necessarily that goes out to the table. It's not that. And it's very clear. It has to be kitchen equipment that is designed to prepare food. So there might be a line in the sand of this knife is acceptable if it's a chef's knife at a certain size. And I don't know exactly the details here. And we can get that right if we're going to be able to move this forward. It does not include, though, silverware out in the front and the things that go in the front of the house. So I think they're trying to find that definition. We got through a lot of this last year, and I think we can keep diving into this. If that's what your wishes are, Madam Chair and members, we can do that. We're trying to, though, what they told us last year was, we're trying to get it consistent with what other bills have done in the past. So that's what they told us last year.
Thank you. Representative Joachim.
Madam Chair, thank you. I think that consistency is what we're trying to
Yeah.
get at too. Like, that's why, like the example of the dough mixer, that's something that's not portable that you're gonna throw in the truck and
Right.
take to your other restaurant versus a chef's. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you for working on this.
Thank you. Representative Anderson.
I'll pass.
Okay. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still, like my fellow representatives, a little confused on sort of the definition of not wanting to tax things that add value to things. I mean, if we're talking about that in the context of business, I mean, just about every. I mean, you mentioned retail shelves. I mean, those do add value because all the things that are held on those shelves are not useful in a warehouse. They're useful so the public can buy them. So, like a large definition of. I mean, business exists because it adds value, right? That's kind of a core of our capitalist system, is that they create value to the consumers. That's why they exist. If they don't add value, then they will fail. And, you know, we don't have to go over basic economic principles. But if we're saying that anything that adds value can't be taxed, I don't know how we can stop not having sales tax exemptions basically on anything that's used in a business sphere. So I guess that's more of a statement and kind of a struggle I'm having. I appreciate you had some good answers to some other questions, so I'm not going to force you to repeat yourself, but just wanted to emphasize that. My secondary question is a little different on the definition of a food service establishment. Does that include, let's say, larger chain restaurants or larger corporations when they're opening a new location?
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you. Yes, that would include anybody who wants to invest in a eatery, a food shop, restaurant. In this definition, would be eligible for that, whether you're a mom and pop or a large corporation. I think that anything we can do to enhance that, again, and put more of these folks in this great industry that pays very well, that is the backbone and the flavor and the sizzle of Minnesota, is more of these kinds of operations. So again, these actually, they put products together, unlike a retail store. These actually, they put people, you know, they produce a product with raw goods that come in many boxes, and they put things together, and that's what they create at a much higher value than it would if you just sold a case of tomatoes. And so they take those tomatoes with all the other things, and they make these sandwiches. So again, I think overall, it's just, it creates a higher value, which I think then maybe gets to your point, Representative, about we don't want to do it to everybody. That's not what we're requesting to do. That's why this has really been pretty narrowly focused to manufacturing, and it has been thought through with prior legislators. So we're just trying to say this is very similar to that. Restaurants are no different than we're trying to create a higher value product of all these raw goods and such. And that's why we thought that for the last several years, these have been actually really good ideas. In fact, this bill then too, from last year, had an expansion about the folks that wanted to do a lot of COVID expansion so they could open up outside, the plexiglass. That was stripped out of this DE bill. So we really kind of downsized it. I'm just trying to make it a nice, clean bill, effective July, so that when they start buying new equipment at that point, we just kind of get on the same line as other manufacturing operations. So it isn't meant to be expansive. It's meant to be very tight, but it's for those reasons as well.
Thank you. Representative Smith.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still struggling. I just don't think most in the food industry would consider themselves manufacturers. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's kind of my first instinct, is this is it's a different category. I think another question I would have is, if we are going to stick with that definition, assuming that definition that, you know, creating food is a manufacturing position, I mean, would you be open to sales tax being exempted for kitchen equipment for regular consumers? I mean, when a parent makes a meal, they're taking the raw ingredients and they're adding, you know, the nutritional value to it or whatever it is, so that their family or they themselves can eat. Would we want to expand that in that sphere as well?
That was a question to okay, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I wouldn't support that, because we're not selling something then on top of this. So when you have a pass-through, we're buying stuff to be able to sell stuff. At a home, we're buying the stove because we need a stove and it ends with us. So the end user typically has to pay that end user tax, whether it's, for whatever use it is. We've in Minnesota have said not on clothing, not on food products, but again on certain food products that are prepared, that are hot, that are prepared that way. There's a sales tax on that. So that I think would be my answer for those other kind of things. If you're raising the value, and again, I think we don't want to stack the taxes. We don't want to stack it when things are moving along. We should just tax it once.
All right. Representative Smith, anything further?
No, I'm good, except maybe I have some constituents outside, so I'm not leaving because of anything that was just said.
We won't take it personally.
Thank you. I won't.
Please don't take it personally.
Representative Baker's not going to take it personally either, I'm sure. We're not going to say the next part. All right. Next up, Olson B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think this is an excellent bill. It's an excellent idea. We do this with a lot of other industry tax-producing items in our economy. You're talking about helping a business startup that's then going to pay. They're going to charge sales tax. They're going to have wages to their workers who are then going to pay income tax. Like, this is an excellent investment for the state, who has spent the last couple of years punching hospitality industry in the nose. So I love it. Thank you for the bill, Representative Baker. But I think what we're failing to realize is there was a comment about a kitchen in their own home. Representative Baker, can you explain, let's pretend we're going to start a restaurant and we're going to have to outfit this entire kitchen. Am I incorrect in thinking that it's a $500 stove, or is it more than that? Is it a $700 refrigerator, or is it more than that? That's just a quick, out of the ballpark. How much money would we have to spend? And then if we're talking about state sales tax on top of that, is it $35, which would be the cost of a $500 piece of equipment, or is it substantially more than that? Thanks for the question, or thanks for the answer.
Thank you. Representative Baker.
And Madam Chair, again, recently I purchased a double-deck convection oven, a Vulcan oven. Those are about a $30,000 oven. It cooks very quickly. All stainless steel, lasts about 30 years, but it's a big investment up front. So that would be a normal kind of a piece of equipment to get. All stainless steel, UL approved, certain recommendations for the health inspector, has to be a certain grade. You have to look at, everything is about triple to 10 times the value of what you would consider normally at I would call it the Home Depot or the Menards kind of valued appliance at those centers. They do the job, but in the commercial world, it is so heavily used. They are on from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, wide open. And so there's a lot difference in the value there.
Thank you. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Representative Baker, so a $30,000 big commercial oven is going to produce somewhere around $2,000 worth of state sales tax if it continues to be taxed. Would you be able to create more than $2,000 worth of sales tax generation to the state with that oven if you were given the opportunity, Rep. Baker?
Representative Baker.
Absolutely, I would, yeah. With a lot of products that go in and out of that every day, all day, a lot more dollars are going to go to the state because of that oven's available in my kitchen.
Yeah, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Representative Baker. This sounds like an excellent investment for the state of Minnesota. I think we should be assisting our hospitality industry and being able to produce and generate more wealth for everyone in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Olson. L.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually kind of going off of what Representative Olson B was asking, given what the industry we help with something like this, the manufacturing, the fabricating, the mining, I don't know if staff has, but what would be the tax output? I mean, what is the current, because I do think as being good stewards, exactly to Representative Olson B's point, and thinking about it from Ways and Means Chair standpoint, it's 14.8 million in this fiscal year and 16.8 moving forward. I wonder what the tax output, what revenue generated for the state comes from those manufacturing and, large mining and, those places with that versus, just kind of, do you get what I'm asking? And so with the original intent for that, did I say something funny?
Well, just you
No,
talk
they-
about mining, and Chair Listagard's going to
okay.
give you a look, apparently.
misspeak
We don't want
about
to talk
something?
about mining and taxes
Okay,
ever, apparently.
It is in the bill on line 1.9, so I didn't bring it in here.
I'm just.
But anyway, so do you get my point of
Yeah.
like thinking about this like from the overall perspective of why we intentionally did this for a certain industry, manufacturing, fabricating, mining, and what that tax output does look like, and if staff did happen to have that number?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, Ms. Templin, did you have something to add?
Madam Chair, Representative Olson, if I understand the question, you're looking for the revenue generated by the certain manufacturers from sales tax. And if that is what you're looking for, I believe that would be a secondary impact. And that information is not readily available, but I could definitely check with tax research and get back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Templin. Representative Olson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think that would just be my point, is thinking about the return on investment if we're going to spend this kind of money on this tax exemption, thinking about it in the global scale of what industries do and historically why this bill did work, or why these exemptions did work, was because of the return on investment it still provided for the state in the form of revenue base, and would want to better understand how that compares to how we're going to be changing this and opening it up to a different industry.
Thank you. Representative Listagard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just maybe a comment and then some questions. So I think anytime that we can incentivize people to make investments, it's important, right? But my question, I guess, Madam Chair, into the bill author is, so if somebody made this investment and say that, redid the whole kitchen and spent $250,000 and got an exemption of $30,000, would it prohibit them from selling that business within a certain period, or they could remodel and then turn around and sell it and making an extra if that was a number, an extra $30,000 in profit?
Representative Baker.
Madam Chair and Representative Listagard, I guess if you look at it that way, anything you could buy with any kind of business, whether you invested it up front and you put $250,000 into a restaurant and you sold it fairly soon, maybe, you take a big risk by getting that money back, because it's not worth what it was when it came in the back door once it's used for the first time. There's a huge depreciation on it. And in a case like that, I would tell you that most accountants would tell you that the value dropped by 25% the first time you used it and first week you did it. So the value will drop quite a bit. You're not going to sell that for $250,000 to some operator in a short term. So you could say that they saved some money. They put it there. But what I think they might have done was, hopefully, with a small decision about this bill to do this, they might have done it anyway. But they also, though, might have done it in a way that was a little bit upscale, or they bought a little extra better equipment than there's different levels of even in the commercial side of things. And so I would say that we hope that this bill will actually give these kind of operators the thinking model of, let's do the right thing. This is a great thing that we can get tax-free, sales tax, no charge on this. And that really goes a long way. I think that, when people give me for my hotel business, if they've got a tax exempt thing and they give me the certificate, that's a big number off their bottom line. And it all helps at the end. So we want these restaurants to be vibrant. We want them to be successful. We don't want to have more Broadway pizzas closing. We want them to be open and stay there. And maybe little things like this are what we can do. So I'm hoping that this kind of bill makes sense to most people.
Representative Listagard.
Thank you, and I totally agree. We have to encourage people to make investments, incentivize. It is a but-for, and I do believe that when business is successful, then your communities are successful. But I think we need to be somewhat cautious and just understand that, because I had a situation when I was on a city councilor, where we incentivized people, and next thing you know, we didn't have any clawback, and they sold. and therefore we lost because we did not look ahead. And that's my only comment.
Thank you. Representative Lee.
I just had another technical question that maybe nonpartisan staff could answer. I know Representative Baker brought up something and I wanted to clarify. If this bill is laid over past, how does it interact with the credits for depreciation of capital equipment?
Ooh.
Is that double dipping, maybe? I'm just curious.
I don't know, Mr. Williams, or who's the depreciation person? Mr. Clayman? Ms. Hagler, I don't think that's you, right? You don't have to deal with that particular problem. All right, tag team, Mr. Clayman, talk to us about depreciation. For what it's worth, Representative David's already told us it's double dipping, not to ruin the fun, but.
Classic double
Mr. Clayman.
Madam Chair and members, yeah, I guess I just mentioned generally that a lot of capital equipment qualifies for, one of two accelerated depreciation provisions federally, Section 179 depreciation for small businesses, and then bonus depreciation for larger businesses. There's different rules for those. I couldn't tell you right now specifically whether like a dough mixer is going to qualify for one or both of those, but those are the provisions, and then the state conforms to Section 179 fully. But for the bonus depreciation provision, there's a state add back, so that's taken over a 6-year time period. So as far, Madam Chair, Representative Lee, as far as interactions go, I mean, there's not really an interaction. So it's just the depreciation deductions under the income tax are separate from whatever happens in the sales tax area.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to make it clear, like, I think it's really important to support our small businesses. I think, for us as lawmakers in the tax committee, we always want to also simplify, when people file their taxes. And I also want to think about, what happens when small businesses try to make sure that they qualify for credits like this, right? Maybe they don't have the money to pay, accountants who are able to kind of like work through all of the technical details. Just want to make sure that, right, like when we create programs like this, it also makes sense, and we're also not double dipping, which is the other piece of it.
All right. Representative Elkins.
A follow-up. So a quick question also on depreciation. So when you depreciate, he'll need to listen. Are you depreciating the cost including tax or excluding tax?
Mr. Clayman.
Madam Chair and members, it's the cost of the property in the year it's placed in service. I would want to, just to make sure I get a clear answer, I'd want to just make sure if there's any rule or something that determines exactly what you can include in the cost. So,
Representative Elkins.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else? Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I didn't expect a filibuster on this bill. We're way overthinking this thing, and I think the return is for every dollar spent, there's a $17 return. I could have that verified. So it's a good deal, Representative Baker, and if I'm off on the numbers, Ms. Templin, please let me know. But we need to support this bill because I went door to door last year on the issue of tax pyramiding, and we have to stop it. So I hope everyone can get behind the Baker bill. This is a very, very fine piece of legislation. I hope we all support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Davids. Oh, Representative Lissegard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want you to know that I do appreciate you bringing this, and we do have to find ways to support our small businesses, and so this is a good bill. I don't know if it's exactly where we want to be, but your willingness to want to explore and dive deeper is very meaningful.
All right. Okay, so I messed up and I forgot to have us vote on the DE2. So
start over.
We're going back to the beginning.
Madam Chair, I move the DE2.
All right. Representative Davids has moved the DE2. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. DE2 is adopted. And we're going to go back. Representative Baker, thanks so much. If you have any closing comments.
I do. Just to quickly, Madam Chair, this is how committees are supposed to work. Thank you, members, for looking at the bill. This is engaging, and this is how it should be to make sure we get it right. I think clearly in my mind, manufacturing is what we do in a kitchen. It's not in every business, but it's here. And I think that's why I really supported this. You know, we're not bringing something for hotels. We're not bringing something for other places that I also run. This is very specific to this product, and I appreciate the really good engagement, and I really hope that we can do something, though, for some smaller businesses and any size business. It doesn't matter. But our eateries and our restaurants are vital to Minnesota's quality of life. This should be something that should be high on our list of priorities to, if there's little things we can do, this is one of them. So thank you, Madam Chair, very much for this opportunity, and I look forward to talking further about this. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Representative Baker, excuse me. Dave Baker, that's what messes me up. All right, and with that, I'm going to renew my motion that House File 893 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill as amended. House File 893 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Thank you. Thanks for the assist, Representative Davids, as always, here to help. Okay, so as everybody knows, we're getting a giant snowstorm, so we'll see all y'all on Tuesday, I guess.
Hope so.
Hopefully. Yeah. Everybody, please make it home safe, drive safe. All right, and with that, we are adjourned.